Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're talking about my favorite thing, highlighters. I bought 3 of the new NARS highlighting powders. I basically got the 3 lightest shades, Albatross, Fort de France, and Capri. So if you're interested in more information on these powders and watching me do a demo and see some swatches of these 3, then just keep on watching. So NARS came out with 6 new highlighters. These are a relatively new formula. So this formula of highlighter is different than any other powder highlighter that they've come out with before, with the exception of the Man Ray, that limited edition beautiful highlighter that I didn't get. I don't know why I didn't get that, but it had those like lips embossed on it. Anyway, they introduced the formula with that particular release, and now they've come out with 6 new shades in that formula, and they're not limited edition, they're part of the NARS line. I purchased basically the 3 lightest shades because those are the only ones that would work on my skin tone, and I thought I would also compare them with the Banque de Sable highlighter palette, which unfortunately is not available anymore, but a lot of people have this compact, a lot of people love this formula, so I thought I would compare it to this. And I would also compare it to the 2 newer cheek palettes, the Rêve Soleil and the Coucher de Soleil palettes. So I mentioned these highlighters in my last Will I Buy It, and I mentioned how excited I was for these. So you guys knew this was coming. I actually saw them for sale on the NARScosmetics.com site, and I went to, purchase them, and I thought, let me see if I can find some swatches. And I kind of went online and I started looking, and then when I went back to the NARS site, the Fort de France shade, which is the one I really wanted, was sold out. So I thought, you know what, let me just wait. And I was just gonna wait until Sephora got it. But I was actually walking around Caesar's Palace, and they have a NARS boutique there. I walked in and they had them all there. So I purchased all 3 in store. They are $38 each, and I'm on the NARS site now. And yes, the Fort de France shade is still sold out. I think I read somewhere that these are supposed to be available on Sephora as of April 1st. So if it is, I will definitely link to them down below. But I just wanted to read to you what the NARS site says about these particular highlighters. So there's no glitter, just glow, seamless glow technology, a blend of sheer powders and pearls to create second skin luster that blends effortlessly. Its satin soft micro spherical powder layers evenly and weightlessly, fusing onto all skin tones. Ultra refined and soft to the touch, the new highlighting powder accentuates skin with buildable radiance and a seductive dewy finish. Features go from delicately lit to strobe in the speed of light. So I played with these highlighters a little bit, and this is basically what I've come away with. That these are very sheer, they go on very, very lightly, but like the description says, they build up, and they build up pretty quickly. So when I demo that, I will try and make sure that the camera is kind of capturing that effect. These are very soft, but they definitely feel harder in the pan in comparison to the 2 cheek palettes and the Banque de Sable highlighting palette. The Banque de Sable highlighting palette is by far the softest and like most powdery of all of these, and it's also the most pigmented. There's no building up with this Banque de Sable palette. It's like, you go in with your brush and pow. There's no doubt you're gonna be highlighting your skin. And with these cheek palettes, it was a little bit more subtle, and the texture felt similar to Banque de Sable. It's powdery, super soft, very silky, but you can see there, even with the tone difference, you can see that it's just not quite as pigmented as the Banque de Sable. Now, I love the Banque de Sable because if I'm gonna highlight, I really wanna be lit. So with these new highlighters, they are definitely harder in the pan, but very, very smooth to the touch. So it's an interesting kind of texture when you go in there. And you can probably see, now this is Albatross, this is the lightest shade in the range, and you can see that there's a little bit of sheerness there. So let me go ahead and just swatch these while I have it on my finger. So there is Albatross. Let me just for comparison, I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the lightest shade in the Banque de Sable. Here it is on my finger, and I'm just going to swatch it right above. So can you see how much more thick the Banque de Sable powder is versus the Albatross new highlighting powder? Let me go ahead and just swatch the other ones. This is the Capri shade. This is the one I would say is sort of in the middle. It has like a pinky tone. And there it is on my finger. And here it is swatched. And then lastly here is Fort de France, and this is more of a warmer kind of champagne beigey tone right there. And there's a swatch of Fort de France. So here's Albatross, Capri, Fort de France, and then this is the lightest shade in Banc de Sable. So since I had read the description of these highlighters before I went in store and purchased them, I was mentally prepared that they were going to be sheer and that they were claiming that it was going to be buildable. So I wasn't expecting something like Banc de Sable. I was expecting something, you know, lighter. What I was personally most curious about was, well, can I build it up? I really enjoy powders where you have that flexibility. You know, you can start really light for that everyday look, or you can really go for it if you want something really, really blingy. So let's go ahead and apply these to my face. I'm going to start with the Fort de France shade, and this is again the one that's like the most warm and beigey. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys with my Sonia G Sculpt 3 brush. So this is a fairly dense fan brush. I'm just going to swipe it down the pan, tap off the excess, and you'll see that this is one of those interesting textures. There really isn't any kind of kick up, and it kind of looks like it's developing hard pan, but it's not. It's just like this ultra smooth kind of powder that kind of gives that reflection in the pan, but it's not actually developing hard pan, at least not for me yet. That's not my experience. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this to my cheekbones right here. And you can see that it is very, very subtle right here along my cheekbone. But I'm going to go in another time, and hopefully you guys will be able to see how quickly it starts to build up. Because I was like, oh, this is really sheer, and I kept going in, and I was like, oh, okay, now we're talking. So do you see how much more reflective that highlighter is now? And then I'm going to go in one more time so you guys can see that you can just keep on keeping on. So there, that is, it's really, really metallic. It's really, to me, it's incredibly beautiful. And so what I really love about the ability to build up highlighters is if you have texture there, you don't really have to go in heavy-handed. As soon as you put a really, really bold highlight on your skin, it's going to emphasize texture no matter what kind of formula or whatever. The brighter it is, the more it's going to emphasize texture. So if you have, you know, maybe like a breakout there one day, you can just go in one swipe. It doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to go crazy. It's very sheer, so it's going to still let your skin shine through, and it's really not going to emphasize that much texture. And if you're having a good skin day and it's like super smooth, you can just keep building up and get a really, really intense highlight. So that is the Fort de France. Let's go ahead and play around with the Capri shade, and this is the one that's a little bit more pink. I'm going to try a different brush just so you guys can see different applications. So I'm going to go in with the Sonia G Sculpt 2 brush. This is a much bigger, much denser fan brush than the Sculpt 3, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to bring it over the pan here, pick up some product, tap off the excess. Again, not very powdery, not, you know, like no kick up. And I'll apply this to this cheek. So when you go in with a brush that is meant to pick up a lot of product, like this Sculpt 2 brush, it's very dense, it has dyed natural bristles which pick up a lot of product. You're going to go in and it's going to be very strong compared to something like this Wispier Sculpt 3 brush. So if you want that ability to build up this highlighter, definitely go in with an appropriate brush, something that is a little bit more airy, a little bit lighter, maybe even a synthetic brush, which is soft, and synthetic bristles are a little bit more slippery, so they're not going to grab as much, and you can kind of play around with the level that you want. If you know that you want a really intense highlighter, just go straight in with a really dense brush like this, and you can just pow, save yourself some time and go in really strong. So that's been my experience playing around with different brushes and this highlighter. And then last but not least, I'm just going to go ahead and give this little Zoeva Petite Fan brush. It's number 137. It's synthetic haired, and I'm going to go ahead and use Albatross, and I'm going to use this kind of over my, or around my brow, I should say, brow bone area, maybe down my nose. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to sweep it across the pan. And I'm going to do it a few more times because I can kind of tell that it's not picking up as much powder as the Sonia G brushes. And I'm going to just sweep this around my eyebrow and underneath. And I don't know if you can see, but it's very, very light application. And again, not a lot of kick up. In fact, no kick up at all. There's no powder residue in the pan after I work a brush over it. So really, really nice formula. I forgot to show you the packaging. So it comes very typical NARS packaging, but it looks like they're moving away from like the more rounded edges and they're moving to this like very squared off edge because the newer, those diffused sun wash bronzers, I think that's the name, they were in cases like this. So it looks like they're moving away from that completely and they're moving over to these squared off compacts, which I actually enjoy much, much more. I find them easier to open. You'll find a nice size mirror on the inside of each compact. So all in all, I really, really enjoy this formula. I like the flexibility of them. I like that they're buildable, as I have repeated myself now 1,000 times. I like that they're not powdery. You know, the formula in here, while it's fantastic, is very, very powdery. There's quite a bit of kick up when I use it. And what I also love, which you can see on my cheeks here, is that there's zero glitter. It's literally just sheen. So you get a really, really nice wet looking highlight, which I'm personally a fan of, without any of like the little micro glitters or without any of those shimmers in there. It's just this really smooth sort of highlight in texture and in effect. Very, very smooth. So I am really, really loving these. If you're my skin tone, I would say either the Fort de France or the Capri will work for you very, very nicely. The Albatross is really, really light, as you can see here. So there's a little bit of like a white iciness to it, but if you are fairer than me, then this will work. But you definitely have to like a gold highlight. And Albatross is actually an existing shade in their, I think they call them like highlighting blushes. So it's a shade that's existing in their line, but since it's been reformulated, it's basically completely different. But the coloring or the idea of the coloring is the same. It's very white, it's very icy. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Please let me know down below in the comment section if you have any questions whatsoever. And subscribe before you leave. I will see you in my next video.